الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له إقرارا به وتوحيدا وأشهد أن محمد عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. ونواصل من قراءتنا في هذه الليلة الثلاثاء من كتاب الداء الدواء لشيخ إمام ابن قيم الجوزي حفظه الله رحمه الله رحمة واسعة. We continue inshallah ta'ala with few chapters of reading from the book of Da' al-Dawa, the medicine and the cure of Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, who is the great scholar, the famous student of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah rahmatan wasi'ah. May Allah have mercy on them both. Walillah alhamd, as we said, we have selected a few chapters from the book, and we'll go on inshallah ta'ala in what we discuss in the issue from the previous sitting, where we were discussing the issue of the dua and the importance of dua. And in the muqaddimah, in this introduction, it's very important that we highlight for a Muslim to achieve ultimate happiness, for a Muslim to find contentment in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for a Muslim to be pleased with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed with them. From the most benefiting ways that a person can establish that is from the adhkar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is within the adhkar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is within remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah told us in the Quran, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَتْمَئِنَّ الْقُلُوبِ. Is it not that the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that hearts they find tranquility in that? So meaning that a person finds happiness, a person finds tranquility in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The famous narration which we always like to share, which that comes in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, where he said, الذي يذكر ربه والذي لا يذكر ربه كمثل الحي والميت. The person who remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the person who does not remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is an example of a person who is deceased and a person who is alive. فأما الذي يذكر ربه فهو حي. For the one who remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is alive. And the one who does not remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is dead. Meaning that the person has some dhiq, sadru, his heart is squeezed, his chest is squeezed. And that is from a person's distancing from remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So within remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person finds tranquility, a person finds peace, a person finds pleasing, and a person is pleased with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from that which also brings happiness to one's heart also is that which is known, is that the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, acknowledging the na'im around you, the blessings around you. Allah told us in the Quran, فَأَمَّا النِّعْمَةَ فَحَدِّثْ. As for when it comes to the ni'mah, na'im of Allah, when it comes to the ni'mah of Allah, the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and speak about them. It's not speak about them in a boastful manner, but acknowledge them. The scholars have mentioned, from the scholars have taken a tafsir and spoken of this ayah, Shaykh Abdul Rahman Nasir al-Sa'di, he said in his book of As-Sa'adah, the book of happiness, he said that it means that a person acknowledging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through many things. And from those things of you acknowledging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from beneficial knowledge, ilmun nafi'. These are things that will enable a person to come across issues that they can be grateful for. And from you speaking of your na'im of Allah, speaking of knowing your Rabb al-Alameen, knowing your iman, knowing what is al-iman, what is al-tawheed. Kullu hadha, all of this enhances or helps the believer to find peace and tranquility in their hearts. Because everyone is searching for this, everyone wants this. And the ultimate happiness is right in front of us. It's within the Quran and the Sunnah of the Messenger alayhi as-salatu was-salam. And that is why it's very important that these sittings and these lessons that we take, or these lectures that we do, it is a benefit for everyone. As we always say, it is a benefit for the young, the person who's teaching, or the old, the person who's listening, or the young person, whoever may be listening to this. These are issues, walillah alhamd, that aids a person that we are highly in need of in these times. And this book, walillah alhamd, of the great scholar of the Sunnah, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, may Allah have mercy on him, he tackles issues that helps a person. He comes with sound narrations, views from the Quran and the Sunnah to aid the person who is in need of help. As remember we said in the Muqaddimah, in the very first lesson, we brought the statement of the questioner who asked the question. And then from the statement he says, فَرَحِمَهُ اللَّهُ مَنْ أَعَانَهُ الْمُبْتَلِي. He said that, may Allah have mercy, he's telling the Shaykh, may Allah have mercy upon the one who aids the one who is tested. وَاللَّهُ فِي أَوْنِ الْعَبْدِ. Allah is in the help of the slave. مَا كَانَ الْعَبْدُ فِي أَوْنِ أَخِي. As long as that slave is in helping or is within helping his brother. And that's what Shaykh al-Islam, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah or Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he began his book by saying, by every problem there is a solution. And then he also goes on to say, by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the person or that issue will be treated. And then also we spoke of the hadith that comes in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, where he mentioned the statement of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, the narration was reported by Usama bin Sharikin, where he said that the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam said, he mentioned the words of the Messenger, he said, indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not bring, or Allah did not reveal, or Allah did not place in this dunya a problem, except He brought a solution for the problem, a cure for the problem. And he went on to say, alimahu, and alim, he extracted or he directed a reason here, or I would say a level here. He says, alimahu man alim, the one who knows about this knows about it, and the one who does not know about it does not know about it. Wajahilahu man jahil. Now, and then also we took a lot of benefits from the statements of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, from them, which was seeking knowledge and seeking guidance from the people of knowledge. We said this is what is needed in this time. This is what is needed in this time. And from the few things also we can mention, which we did not mention, we said we mentioned the statements of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, where he said, لا يأتي زمانا إلا والذي بعد أشر منه. The Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam told us, he told his companions 1400 years ago, he said that a time will not come. لا يأتي زمانا إلا والذي بعده أشر منه. He said the time will not come except that the time that comes after is more severe than the time that is before that. So meaning that as time goes, the fitna will rise, the problems will rise. And that is why, walillah alhamd, that we have this beneficial guidelines, this insight, ilmun nafi'ah, knowledge that is beneficial, that can suffice the Muslim sister, the Muslim brother upon things that are upright. Remember that at the end of the day, the goal, everyone has some good intention. But remember, at the end of the day, we do this to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His sake in the correct manner. And also from the few things we mentioned in the hadith, from the statements and the athar, we mentioned the athar of the group of companions who took on a journey. And when these people took on a journey, one of the companions became ill. He was struck by a rock and he became very ill. And at that particular time, he slept, وَهَكَذَا. And remember we mentioned the story of these people taking a verdict without seeking, I would say, correct advice. And then they returned back to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when he was advised about this issue, he told them that indeed you people have killed him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has killed you. And then he mentioned the statement, where he said, فَإِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِيِّ سُؤَالٍ. He said, indeed, the cure of ignorance is to ask questions. And we also mentioned the qissa of the hadith of Abi Sa'id, where the group of companions, they traveled and they found themselves in one of the lands of the Arab lands. And they were from the weak ones in that land, meaning that they were in the lands of the kuffar. And as they got there, the chief became ill. As the chief became ill, they did ruqya on the chief. Now, because these people didn't want them to live, to stay a night, to take mabit, meaning that to rest a evening there on their journey. And alhamdulillah, by the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the chief was cured in this hadith of Abi Sa'id that comes in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, also comes in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, Imam al-Bukhari. So we said that this narration here indicated that the importance of Surah Al-Fatiha. The first one we acknowledged, the first chapter of this book, we acknowledged that there is no problem except there is a solution for it. We have yaqeen, we have certainty of that. It is from the belief of Ahlul Sunnah, the belief of a Muslim, that we believe every issue will be dealt with accordingly. I mean, every problem, there is a solution for it. And the issue number 2 was Surah Al-Fatiha. We spoke of the importance, and also Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi mentions a benefit in his book Zad al-Ma'ad. Also he mentions that benefit here in this book of Ibn Dawa, the medicine of the cure. He says, وَمُكِتُّ بِمَكَّةَ. He mentions a story where he was in the Makkah. And when he was in Makkah, he said, أُصِيبَ بِمَرَضٍ. He was afflicted by a sickness. As he was afflicted by a sickness, he said, وَلَا أَجْدُ تَبِيبًا. He said, I did not come across a doctor. وَلَا تَبِيبًا. No, تَبِيبًا وَلَا دَوَاءً. I mean, a sickness, a doctor, nor did he come across something of medication. فَكُنْتُ أُعَالِجْ نَفْسِي بِالْفَاتِحَةِ. He said, this word is running away from me again. I used to treat myself. No, I used to treat myself bil-Fatiha. I used to treat myself with the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha. فَأَرَى لَهَا تَأْثِيرًا عَجِيبًا. Then he said that I saw that it has a lot of great benefit. It has a lot of great effect in it now. So these are the statements, and these are the things we mentioned in the previous sittings. Now, and then we went on to the statement where he said, وَكَذَلِكَ الدُّعَى. After Surah Al-Fatiha, we said, وَكَذَلِكَ الدُّعَى. And from the things that helps a person is the supplication. And we said that it is asbab. It is from the reasons, the great reasonings. الدفع المكروه, the defense the evil. والحصول المطلوب, and for a person to attain and reach that goal. ولكن قد يختلف عن أثره. But what happens to this dua? It differs based on its effect. And we mentioned some ad'iyah has some weakness in it. We mentioned examples of that. We said that a dua that mean that Allah does not like. We said a dua that a person, for example, has da'ful qalb. He has heedlessness in his heart. His heart is not alive when he's making that dua. He says, for example, I'm making this dua, but if Allah, you accept it. That type of thing. And we mentioned great benefits. From them we mentioned the benefit of Shaykh Abdul Rahman Nasir al-Sa'di, where we said Shaykh Abdul Rahman Nasir al-Sa'di in the Salatul Istisqa. I will not mention the story, I've mentioned it quite a few times. And then we also mentioned the statement of the Messenger alayhi salat, allegedly, not really the statement of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, but in this book Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi attributes it to the Messenger. He says, أُدْعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَنْتُمْ مُوقِنُونَ بِالْإِجَابَةِ. He said, ask Allah, وَأَنْتُمْ مُوقِنُونَ بِالْإِجَابَةِ. Whilst you are certain that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to answer your dua. And he said, أن الله لا تقبل. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala لا يقبل or لا يقبل دعاء من قلب غافل الله. Allah does not answer a dua that has no certainty, meaning the person has weakness in that dua. We did mention this hadith has some weakness towards it in its chain of narration. But we said in its ma'na, in its meaning, وَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدِ, it stands to be strong. It stands to be strong because it's the narration that made it hasan, that made it strong. And now this brings us to the issue of studying al-mustalah, the terminologies of hadith, the terminology of hadith. Now, ala kulli hal, then we also went into the statements from the few things that weakens the dua. We mentioned the hadith of the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam. We spoke about, he said, Ya ayyuhan nas, al hadith that comes Sahih Muslim, where he said that from the things that bring weakness in one's supplication, he said, is ukul haram, eating of haram. Yubtal quwwatu wa yudha'ifuha. It breaks away, or it cuts the strength of the dua, and it makes it weak. ويضيفها كما في صحيح مسلم, as mentioned in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, من حديث أبي هريرة, on the hadith that's reported by أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه. He said قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He mentions the statements of the Messenger عليه الصلاة والسلام said, يا أيها الناس, O you people, إن الله طيب. In it Allah is good. لا يقبل إلا طيبا. Allah does not accept that which is good. وإن الله أمر المؤمنين بما أمر المرسلين. Indeed, Allah commanded the believers what He commanded the messengers. فقال يا أيها الرسل. Then He said to, Allah said to all the messengers, all the messengers, كلوا من الطيبات. Eat that which is good. وَعَمَلُوا صَالِحًا. And act upon righteous deeds. إِنِّي بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ عَلِيمٌ. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is worthy of knowing of everything. We mentioned these things, so I'm going about quick. It's recap. وَقَالَ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُلُوا مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. In other verses, Allah said, O you who believe, كُلُوا مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, or Aisha, al-Mu'minah, they said, every time you come across a verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses a group of people by Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, O you who believe, He said, Fasma, open your ears, Sam'ak. Meaning that every time you hear Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, for the person who speaks the Arabic language or the person who does not speak the Arabic language, kilakuma, everyone that hears this ayah, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, other narration says Aisha, she said, every time you hear the statements, Ya ayyuhal ladhina aman, O you who believe, open your ears, listen attentively. Listen attentively. It's the same example the scholars like to make in a given example. They say, look, today's time, if an important person is speaking on TV, I know during the COVID, presidents used to address the people, it should be very important, so everyone want to listen to that. I'm not saying everyone listens to the president, but we're just giving an example of that sort. And if a important person says something, addresses the people listen. People give them their ears. So same thing, this is Allah, our creator, the one we take shahada for. The one we testify that there is no deity that is entitled to be worshipped except Allah, except Him. So here He's saying, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu. If you listen attentively, you fall into the virtue of the believers here. Kulu, and He says, it's a side benefit I thought mentioning. It says, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, kulu min at-tayyibat ma razaqnakum. Allah said, O you believe. O you who believe. Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu means O you who believe. Kulu, eat, command, it's a command. Min at-tayyibati ma razaqnakum. Allah commands us to eat from the tayyibat, the good, that He has sustained or created or put in this dunya. And then from the narration of Abu Hurairah goes on. He says, ثُمَّ ذَكَرَ رَجُلًا. They speak of a man. Now remember, this man here is a story or it's an issue that occurred in the time of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. Because who is saying the statement? The Messenger is saying this. ثُمَّ ذَكَرَ رَجُلًا يُبْتِلُ سَفَرًا. He said this person is on a journey. He is tired on a journey. أَشْأَثَ أَخْبَرًا يَمُدُّ يَدَيْهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. This person has got every single thing in him. Remember that we know from the times that the dua of the person is accepted is a time of safar. From the time the du'as are being accepted is the time when a person is doing a safar. Be it a safar of business, be it a safar of hakada. But ما دام أنك في السفر, you are upon a journey, you are from the people who are specified that your dua is more likely to be answered. يبتل السفر أشأث أخبره يمد يد, meaning that he's got everything for his dua to be accepted. Then he says, يَمُدُّ يَدَهِ, he lifts his hand إلى السماء. يَا رَبْ يَا رَبْ. He says, Oh my Lord, oh my Lord. وَمَطْعَمُهُ haram. But his food, his eating is haram. وَمَشْرَبُهُ haram. His drinking is haram. وَمَلْبِسُهُ haram. And his clothing is haram. وَغُذِيَ بِالْحَرَامِ. Everything that he has, and he is established upon what is haram. فَأَنَّ يُسْتَجَابُ لِذَلِكَ. Then the Messenger then says, do you think a person's dua like that will be accepted? Note the words of the Messenger. Also note the words of the author here. He does not say that the dua is not going to be accepted. He just says, he means that this dua is weak. Meaning that he has weakness to it. But Allah is Ghafur Rahim. Because someone might find themselves in a situation where they're like, I have all of these things, I cannot repent. And that's what some of the Christians, some of the people we meet day to day, you find them, you tell them about Al-Islam, they say, but I've got too much sins, I can't come back, wahakadha. Now you give them the glad tidings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful, He forgives, come to the right deen, teach them the right creed, and this type of things. Now, so this note, the words of the Messenger, he does not say this dua is not accepted. He does not say that. But rather what we can take from it is the general of it is very weak. It's very weak for his dua, for him. It's very weak, meaning that this is establishing the point that the author rahimahullah ta'ala was making here, where he said, إِمَّا لِضَعْفٍ. He said, وَلَكِنْ قَدْ يَخْتَلِفْ. It sometimes differs based on the effect, إِمَّا لِضَعْفٍ فِي نَفْسِهِ, based on the weakness within itself. So this is something that people should know when it comes to ad-dua, when it comes to the supplication. And from the few things we mentioned last week, we said that ad-dua silahu al-mu'min. We said that dua is a weapon for the believer. وَإِمَادَةُ الدِّينِ. And this is from the statement of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even though this narration is weak, but the meaning is good. The meaning is good. It says ad-dua silahu al-mu'min. The dua is the weapon of the believer. وَإِمَادَةُ الدِّينِ. And it is a pillar of the religion. وَنُورُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And it is the lights and it is the light and the lights of the heavens and the earth. Meaning it's guidance. Now, and then we mentioned a few things. We said there's 3 ways of how dua is repelled. Dua is how dua could be placed. 3 levels. This is the point where we stopped last week. We said there are 3 ways where the dua. We said أحدها أن يكون أقوى من البلاء فيدافئه. We said there's 3 ways dua can be placed, or dua can be positioned. When I say it can be positioned, I mean the outcome of dua has 3 ways. Number 1, we said أحدها أن يكون أقوى من البلاء. We said that dua is stronger than the trial or the affliction or something that you've been afflicted with, so it destroys it completely. That is the aqwa state of dua. That is the work of a dua. The dua that comes in the correct manner. Mean a person, jammal awqat, the person has come with the correct times. The person has come with the righteous deeds. The person has eaten halal, eaten that which is good. Mean has come with everything that and has yaqeen. He has come with all the right reason of dua. This is the note where your dua, this is the strongest point of dua. أحدها أن يكون أقوى من البلاء فيدافئه. Meaning it is stronger than the issue, so it defends it or it fends it off. والثاني, number 2, أن يكون أضعف من البلاء فيقوي على البلاء فيصاب به العبد ولكن قد يخفف وإن كان ضعيفا. So the author then says the other possibility of the dua is وأن يكون أضعف. Perhaps this dua is weaker than the default position of dua, which is a strong position. The first one we mentioned, من البلاء فيقوي على البلاء. So you find that it is weaker, but it makes, what does it do? for فيصيب به, mean they combat one another. No, not combat, sorry, let me read that. It means that it weakens, it means that the problem or the predicament or the affliction is stronger than a dua, but still the dua, even though it's weak, it still helps the person, meaning weakens the trial. It weakens the problem. It does not mean the problem does not overcome you completely. Mean the dua does have some winning to it, but it's weaker than the default position of dua, which is obviously overcoming the whole problem. So mean that dua is still active in this scenario, but just that the problem or the sickness or the trial is just mainly stronger than the dua. And number 3, أَيَّتَقَاوَمَا وَيَمْنَعْ كُلُّ وَاحِدْ مِنْهُمَا صَاحِبًا. And the author, he says, the third one is, it's one of 2. It's either it cancels the dua, it cancels the problem completely, or the problem cancels. They combat one another. The dua combats the problem. Based on what? Based on the effect. Based on the person who's making that dua. It goes back to that. Now it goes back to that. And then also we mentioned the statement of Al-Hakim fi Sahih. This hadith is Hasan. This hadith has some goodness to it. On the basic, that hadith is weak. I'll go to the next one, which is the one I'm talking about, Hasan, which is good. Where he says, وَفِي أَيْضًا مِنْ حديث Ibn Umar. The hadith of Ibn Umar. أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. This is where I would say, assume he stopped in the previous sitting. He said, قال الدعاء ينفع مما نزل ومما لم ينزل فعليكم إبار الله بالدعاء. Where he said, this is a very important statement of the Messenger عليه الصلاة والسلام. He says, وأيضا من حديث Ibn Umar. From the narration of Ibn Umar, the son of Umar ibn al-Khattab. Allah have mercy Allah be pleased, may Allah be pleased with him and his father. He said, قال النبي sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, الدعاء دعاء ينفع مما نزل. He said the dua, it benefits that which was not yet decreed, or not decreed, sorry. What has not yet come. وَمِمَّا لَمْ يَنزِلْ. And sorry, let me repeat this again. الدعاء ينزل. الدعاء ينفع. The dua benefits. مِمَّا نزل. It benefits what has happened in the past already. Something that has been decreed already. Something that's been put already. It can benefit something that happened yesterday. You making dua can help you benefit from what had happened yesterday. We'll explain how just now, inshallah. وَمِمَّا لَمْ يَنزِلْ. And also can benefit you in that which is to come. So dua here can help you come across your past issues and the issues of the future. So every single Muslimah, brother, وهكذا, the question you need to always ask yourself, every time you are trialed, every time you are put into a situation, have you really gone down towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asked Him? Have you really given some time and learned the supplications on the Sunnah? Have you really given some time and found out or learned about your Rabb al-Alameen, or created a connection with your Rabb al-Alameen? Because these are things that many of us miss out, and many of us belittle dua. The other day I was telling a friend of mine, I was telling him, they look at the Christians, they praying, and before they play, they praying. And the person says, but look, he's praying for football. Look at that. And Aisha al-Mu'minin told us, she said that in the hadith, he said, the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that dua is for even the most little of things, the things that people overlook. And she mentioned an example, she said even a shoelace. And that hakada kana salaf. This is how the companions of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam were. They were people who were very strict, that they relied upon Allah before anyone. We're not saying relying on people today's time is shirk wa hakada. We're not saying that. If a person can help you, a person can assist you with his ability or her ability, then la ba'sa bidhalik. If your mother or your brother or your sister or your father, whoever may be, and I'm your friend, whoever may be, they can assist you with something that it's within their ability, la ba'sa bidhalik. Now that goes obviously to the issue of the bab, the chapter of now people asking the graves, qubur, righteous people. That's now because they don't have the ability to do so, and that's why it is shirk. And that's why it is shirk, clear shirk now. Ala kulli hal here is that a person should ask yourself, how much certainty do you have when it comes to dua? We see what's going on in the world today's time. We see the problems that we go through, that people are going through. And you find brothers and sisters belittling the concept of a dua. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam told us, even though this hadith has weakness to it, but it has hasan also as well. When the Messenger said, "Ad-du'a mukhul ibadah," dua is ibadah, it's worship. It's weak, the hadith. We don't take the hadith as it authentically attributed to the Messenger, but we take the general ma'na, meaning of it. The meaning is correct. Mean a person asking Allah is a dua. Is a worship. A person asking Allah for wealth, a person asking Allah for safety, a person asking Allah for security, for all of these things, this is an ibadah. Acknowledging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is an ibadah of tawheed. It's you understanding tawheed. So the brother and sister, let the brother and sister, whoever has been afflicted by a trial, go back and understand the concept of dua. People are trialed, loss of family, loss of wealth, وهكذا. Go back to ad-dua. Ask Allah to help you and aid you. Even if it comes from a weakness point of view, it falls into the scenarios where it can help make the affair easy. Make the affair easy. So from the points here we said, from the hadith of Ibn Umar, نَزَلَ وَمِمَّا لَمْ يَنزِلْ, mean that sometimes you might find, as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud he said, a very good statement, he said, that perhaps sometimes a person's sorrow A person's sadness might be from a sin that they did in the past. And it's affecting them as they go older and older and older and older. So seeking Allah's forgiveness, acknowledging one's sins, trying to act upon righteous deeds, as Allah told us in the Quran, إِنَّ الْحَسَنَاتِ يُذْهِبْنَ السَّيِّئَاتِ. In the hasana, the good deeds, they wipe out the bad deeds. As Allah told us, كُلُوا مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَأَمَلُوا صَالِحًا. Eat from what is good. Eat from what is good. يعني كُلُوا مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَأَمَلُوا الصَّالِحًا. Act upon righteous deeds. Because righteous deeds are from the issues that helps a person. We mentioned adhkar. تطمئن القلوب, brings tranquility to the heart. Beneficial knowledge brings tranquility to the heart, brings happiness to the heart. There is no therapy, as the scholars they like to say. There is no therapy that is better than learning the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam upon the understanding of the companions, upon the understanding of the Salaf. There's no better therapy than that. For Muslims should know this. اعلموا أيها المؤمن. So meaning that if a person makes this dua, it can benefit them from what has happened in the past. And it can benefit them for what is yet to come. That is the power of dua. And then he says, the messenger then makes a command. He says, فَعَلَيْكُمْ عِبَادَ اللَّهِ بِالدُّعَى. Upon you, O servants of Allah, is the supplication. There is a statement of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam where he said, Hadith al-Thuban. In this book he says, وَفِي أيضا حديث الثوبان. And in Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, لا يرد القدر إلا الدعاء. He said nothing changes or nothing lifts the qadr, the decree of Allah, except the dua. And then he says, وَلَا يَزِيدُ فِي الْأُمْرِ إِلَّا الْبِرُّ. Then the messenger said, nothing, لا يزيد, nothing, a person does not get increased. Nothing is, gives increased, nothing brings the increasing of umr, of lifespan, إِلَّا الْبِرُّ, except piety, righteousness. And then he said, إِنَّ الرَّجُلُ لَيُحْرَمَ الرِّزْقِ بِذُنْبِ وَيُصِيبُهُ. You find a person, he is prevented from sustenance based on, and he's been tested in many ways. Maybe he could be given the sustenance, or he could be prevented from the sustenance based on things that he's doing that is against piety, righteousness. But this hadith of Tirmidhi, the second part, this part here, the part of al-umr illa al-bir, the part of where he says لا يزيد الأمر, meaning that it does not increase in age except righteousness. That part is weak. But the first part, لا يرد القدر إلا الدعاء, meaning that dua is from the things that can turn away the qadr, meaning it can change taqdeer. Dua, remember, dua, imagine a Muslim knowing this. Remember, we believe in al-iman al-qadr. Remember, people who took the tawheed and aqidah classes, we spoke about al-qadr. We spoke about it immensely. We spoke about it to a good point, I would say. Now, so here, these are the things. Imagine qadr can be changed from an individual based on your dua. Think about takhayyur. Number two, from the few things also, he mentions, he says, from the next chapter, he says, al-ilha'u fi dua. He says, al-ilha'u fi dua, he goes into another chapter, he says, from the few things of supplications is to have persistence in supplication. To have what? Persistence in the supplication. Al-ilha. Then Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, he says, faslun al-ilha'u fi dua. He said, he says, al-ilha'u fi dua. To have persistence within the supplication. Be consistent on it, not giving up. وَمِنْ أَنْفَى الْأَدْوِيَةِ الْإِلْحَاءُ فِي الدُّعَاء. He said, from the most beneficial remedies, a person can come with, cures, is to have al-ilha', is to have consistency or persistence when it comes to the supplication. وَقَدْ رَوَى ابن ماجه في سننه. He mentions a statement of Ibn Majah that is put in the Sunan of Ibn Majah. من حديث أبي هريرة. In the narration of Abi Hurairah, he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من لم يسأل الله يغضب عنه or يغضب عليه. Where he said, the messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam said, whomsoever does not ask Allah, Allah becomes angry at that individual. Now that is the difference between our creator and the insan. This is what the scholars always like saying when they speak of this hadith. The insan like myself ask me too much questions, tell me too much things, remind me of too much things. I become upset, I become very angry. Now, as for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it says, مَنْ لَمْ يَسْأَلِ اللَّهِ, as the messenger said, يَغْضَبْ عَلَيْهِ. And Allah told us in Quran, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ أُنِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Tell the people to supplicate to me, I will answer that supplication. فَكَمْ مِنْ أُنَاسٍ, how many of us do we find? I'm one of them. Ask me a few things, I become upset. As for Allah, He is free. He is free from these things. And then He's telling us that مَنْ لَمْ يَسْأَلِ اللَّهِ, Allah becomes angry. Allah says, whoever doesn't ask Him, He becomes angry at that person. And then also, وذكر الأوزاعي عن حديث الزهري عن عورة عن عائشة. Awza'i mentioned the hadith of Zuhri, Imam al-Zuhri. He brings the hadith of Awra. Awra كان من التابعين. كان من التابعين. Some people say كان أورا كان من يعني كانت من أورا بنت. He was from the tabi'in, the people who saw the companions. Awra bin Zubayr. He said عن عائشة, the mother of the believer, said قالت, she said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله يحب الملحين في الدعاء. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the people that have consistency, they are persistent in their dua. What does persistent mean? Persistent means a person has consistency. They ask, they seek, they go on, they do not give up in asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this hadith of Aisha, there is some statements around it. Some of them have said it has some weakness in it. It has some weakness in it. Again, we do not take the hadith down because hadith has good ma'na, it has good meaning. It has good meaning. And then also he mentions a very good benefit here. وفي كتاب الزهد, in the book of ecstaticism, I don't know if I'm saying that word properly. Ecstaticism, the Imam Ahmad, of the Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal al-Qatadata. The narration of Qatada, قال مرزوق, he mentions the statement of Marzuq. ما وجدت للمؤمن مثلا. He said, we do not know an example of a believer except إلا رجل, except a man في البحر على خشبة. That person is upon a khashba, meaning that he is leaning on a khashba, is a log. فهو يدعو, and he is supplicating towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Rabb, Ya Rabb, لعل الله أن ينجح. Meaning that this person here, at that particular point, he's in the middle of ocean. Ibn Qudama, he says, when I read this narration from Ibn Qudama, he mentions the person who is in the middle of the ocean, he is drowning. The only thing he has is hanging on to the log that's keeping him. And he's saying, only Allah, Ya Rabb, Ya Rabb. And he says, this is the affair, this should be the affair of the believer. Meaning that in every condition, in every trial that you go through, it must be like you think of yourself or imagine yourself being that man who is in the middle of the ocean holding on to a log and is screaming, Ya Rabb. The only way out is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says every affair, if a Muslim behaves like this in every affair, meaning that he believes in Allah in every affair. Every affair he puts Allah first before anyone. Not he calls this one or calls that one for his issues. This person, walillah alhamd, this is the affair of the true believer. This is the affair of the true believer. Every issue that a person is going through, we're not saying do not seek help from people, from your siblings, be it your friends or people who are in charge over you. We're not saying that. But what we're saying here is that the example the book is giving us, Ibn Qayyim is giving us, he's saying that be like that man who is in the middle of the ocean, who is basically he's leaning onto a log, or basically he's drowning. And the only way out of it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Ya Rabb, Ya Rabb. And that is the affair of the believer. So in every affair that you take, small or big, this is the affair of the believer. This is the affair of the believer. And then he says, first on al-istijal ijabat al-dua. This is, we'll just take 2 minutes of this statements and we'll call it a lesson, inshallah. He says istijal. He says first one. Now remember we spoke of persistency. Now he says another chapter, he says istijal bil istijaba. Mean a person has been rushing for his answer. You mean for rushing for Allah to answer his dua. So he says, from the few things that brings the dua for it not to be accepted is al-istijal. Is a person rushing, a person being hasty in terms of the answer of the dua. يستعجل الأب ويستبطل الإجابة. He is hasty. He wants the answer. He wants Allah. He is hasty in terms of how he wants the dua. And then for في Sahih al-Bukhari, in the narration of Sahih al-Bukhari من حديث أبي هريرة, he says in the hadith of Abi Hurairah رضي الله تعالى عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, he says يستجاب لأحدكم من لم يعجل يقول دعوت فلم يستجب لي. The Messenger of Allah عليه الصلاة والسلام said, يستجاب لأحدكم, dua will be answered for one of you, من لم يعجل, for the one who is not hasty. There's a difference between having certainty and a person who is being hasty. There's a difference there. Notice the difference. The certainty means that you are certain Allah is hearing and Allah will answer that dua. As for the one who's hasty, he's hasty. He wants everything to be done quick. He wants a quick fix. لم يجعل يقول دعوت. Then he says, this is what makes hasty. This is the definition of hasty. Da'awtu, he'll say, Da'awtu, I asked Allah. How many people do we know like that? Da'awtu falam yastajib li. Allah did not answer my dua. How many people do you tell them, make dua for your problem? They'll be like, I asked Allah, I've been making dua. They talk like that. This is what hastiness means. This hadith of Abi Hurairah that comes in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari. وفي Sahih Muslim, look at this narration, next narration. He says, أنه لا يزال يستجاب لعبد من لم يدع بإثم قطعة رحم ومن لا يستجيب. Okay, that hadith is da'if. I will not translate it. I will not speak about it much. I'll go down to the hadith of Musnad Imam Ahmad, which is sound. Where he said, Musnad Imam Ahmad, he said, من حديث آنس قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يزال الأبد بخير ما لم يستعجل. They said, Imam Ahmad mentioned the hadith in his Musnad, which hadith is sound, walillah alhamd. The hadith of Anas. He says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, لا يزال الأبد. The slave will cease, or the slave will continue to be upon goodness. ما لم يستعجل, as long as he's not hasty. قيل, then they said, قيل. قيل in the books of hadith is mean that it said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, وَمَا الْإِسْتِعْجَالِ, what is hastiness? What do you mean hastiness? Because the Messenger said hastiness. He said, what is istijal? Or he said, كَيْفَ يَسْتَعْجِلِ, how does a person become hasty? Explain to us that. قال, then the Messenger said, يَقُول قَدْ دَعَوْتُ رَبِّي فَلَمْ يَسْتَجِبْ لِي. The Messenger then said, the Messenger said, an individual will say, I have made a dua and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not accept from me. Allah did not accept from me. So this indicates, this is the tafsir and the explanation of what hastiness means. Meaning that قَدْ دَعَوْتُ رَبِّي فَلَمْ يَسْتَجِبْ لِي. Meaning I asked Allah and Allah did not answer me. How many people go through problems? Go through like financial problems and go through like many different problems. I don't want to make examples. Well, then everyone knows problems. And you tell them, make dua. No, I've made dua. Allah He's not answering my dua. This is what hastiness means. And the Messenger said, this type of dua is not to be answered. And I remember I said there's a difference. There's a distinction between being hasty and being certain in wanting or in gaining your answer, your answer from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب بإذن الله تعالى, I'll stop here this evening inshallah ta'ala. If Allah permits us inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue our next sitting from awqat al-istijaba, from the times where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers the du'as, which is authentically put in the sunnah of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. We still on the issue of dua. As we said, we're going to be taking selected chapters from this book. Then inshallah ta'ala, going to other books bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, that we see that is of benefit for everyone inshallah. Barakallahu fikum. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik wa jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.